It's a year since the US began restoring relations with its most hated neighbour, and in the coming weeks, American Airlines will start flying to Cuba. The communist island was one of the world's most isolated nations for more than half a century. Now that is about to change. Jonathan Lee recently visited Cuba for this report.
From the air, Havana looks like a war-torn capital, battered and besieged. Its coastline unchanged since the days when pirates plundered her warm waters. From every angle, Cuba is a country of contrasts. An island trapped in a time warp, desperate for help, but reluctant to alter its political course. 82-year-old James Francisco dares to speak out. He remembers what life was like before America imposed its trade embargo in 1960.
Was better than the hard situation of today. That's why everyone expects and is waiting for the gate to open, only looking for a better life.
The grandfather sat in the same park when Fidel Castro's party rose to power. He says before communism, crime was king. The mafia ran rampant. These bullet holes amongst Cuba's more visible scars.
This system limits that. The only thing that you can drink here in Cuba is a little bit of rum.
In modern Cuba, internet is sparse, as is graffiti. By day, salsa echoes from bars. Come dusk, football takes over. At night, men play dominoes in dimly lit alleyways. Still, the country's love affair with its former dictator and liberator remains unchanged.
Fidel for us all the time is the hero.
No more so than here, where the CIA-sponsored Bay of Pigs invasion failed dismally and led to the missile crisis that brought the US and the Soviets to the brink of nuclear war. More than half a century later, Washington has finally restored diplomatic relations.
I think it's better for everyone, for the economy and for the country. I think it's a big change.
While tourism may be the country's future, it also has its drawbacks. Businesses which have been struggling for years are driving up prices to cash in, making everyday goods more expensive for struggling local families. The trade embargo is yet to be lifted, but Americans are arriving in droves. Canadian Matteo Speranza has been visiting for 13 years. He says with each new tourist, the old Cuba is slowly being lost.
What Cuba needs will then take something away from Cuba. When you come to Havana, for example, you're thrown back 100 years.
For now, muscle cars, some with nearly 1 million miles on their clocks, are what people come to see.
Maybe tomorrow change again. But now, yeah, we sit and we wait.
In Cuba, only the people age. For in this country, time stands still. Jonathan Lee, 10 Eyewitness News.
At this time of year, we do hear a lot about the Christmas spirit, people coming together and helping those in need. But there are people who embody that quality all year long. People like Jane Gavel. She's an Australian who's established a charity helping underprivileged communities in Peru. Our reporter Jonathan Lee has travelled to see her work firsthand.
High in the Andes, where life is harsh and the air is thin, you'll find children who can't help but smile. 15 years ago, Jane Gavel went off to see the world, only to end up changing it for the better.
The most rewarding part is every day that I come up here and seeing the kids. They're learning, they've got love in their life, whereas when we first come into a community, they're all adults.
Jane fell in love with Sylvie, a Peruvian who's now her husband. Together, they set up a charity harnessing the dedication of international volunteers.
It just makes you feel great. The amount of work they do is wonderful.
4,000 volunteers have chipped in. Peru's challenge has now built 5 schools. 4 more are under construction. Over the past 12 years, they've educated 3,000 students, feeding them, then teaching them everything from reading and writing to health and hygiene. The Education Minister impressed by their work.
Thanks to you guys for the help you are giving us. The children are happy and you can notice it.
The pair continue to help desperately poor communities become self-sustainable, putting locals through courses, improving irrigation and building dozens of greenhouses, generating income. The average family wage was $8 a week. It's now more than $80.
En los alimentos.
How's this going to help your family? We're going to be able to feed our family.
Many, though, still live in appalling conditions. This family of 8 breeds guinea pigs just to survive. The animals live on the dirt floor of the bedroom. To keep warm, the mother burns highly toxic polystyrene.
So very quickly we can get her some food. She had no food at all to feed her kids for lunch. The long term, we're going to be building her a greenhouse so that she can make more income for her family, so that she can feed her kids every day and look for a better future.
Time and again, the charity steps up to help where others fail. It's quite confronting, but this family has just asked for the charity's help. 4 weeks ago, their father broke his neck in a construction accident. For the past month, he's laid outside every day amongst the dogs and the chickens. Without the charity's help, the family has no one it can turn to.
I feel like we should be doing more.
Perhaps Jane's proudest success is a group she calls the Inca Mamas. They meet regularly knitting garments for the markets. They'll tell you it's empowered them and helped rid their families of domestic violence.
When I think about the future, I smile, but I know that my dreams are coming to reality, and I wake up and I feel good. I think if you told me when I got on the plane, when I was first going on my overseas adventure, that I would set up an organisation as special as Peru's Challenge, I would have laughed at you.
Look who's laughing now. Jonathan Lee, 10 Eyewitness News.
A great story. Well, it's time for sport now with Adam Hawes.